Okay, let's call the meeting to order. And I'll take roll call. We've got Teresa Meshes.
Here.
John Reiner.
Here.
Carl Kaminsky.
Present.
Larry Smith is not here. Down here, Tracy Van Bergen is up at Public Health meeting this morning. If we need her, we can get her. Mark Koenig.
Caitlin.
Katie, I always screw that your first name, I'm sorry about that.
Good to see you.
And then we got Abigail
Yep, here.
Wildren. Who else we got here?
Ross Pollack.
Ross.
Oh.
Mark Fryer is not here. Scott Hayek's not here. Tim Huff's here. Scott's here too.
There you are.
Do we have Chris? No,
He sent an email saying he would be here.
he's not.
Yeah, he sent an email saying he would not make it. Yeah.
All right, so seeing all those, I need a motion to approve minutes. Mr. Kaminsky moves. Ms. Mesha seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's approved. Public comment. We have no public comment. Member comments, anyone? Okay. Action items. We're going to do interviews here this morning. And we'll do the ones that are here. If some of them have missed, we'll put them toward the end. Also, at the end of the candidates listed here, Scott Hayek is also interested in applying also from the village of Huntley. And so I'm going to throw him in here at the end if there's no objections to that. So we're going to start off.
Jim, do you also want to announce that we're going to, the highlighted names in yellow are going to get to carry over?
Okay, yeah, there were three of them last year when we did the 24, and we appointed them for the 28 terms, or 24 terms that we had interviewed them and appointed those for the 24 terms to finish out, and then I just carry them over for the 28 term, since we just had interviewed them. So, next one will be, first one up then is going to be Gabe. Gabe Powers.
Yep, just go right here.
Enter the hot seat, yeah.
Hot
come on,
seat.
see here. Tell us about yourself and what you've done before in the past, and I understand you've always been on the committee for a long time.
Right. So I guess I'll just start off by thanking everyone here for allowing me to serve this group. I've been involved with Stormwater ordinance since actually I was hired by the Conservation District to do some wetland review work for the county as part of the original agreement, and then I've been involved in TAC. I believe we started the TAC group in 2008, so the last 14 years or so. And it's with that perspective that I bring forward my intention of continuing involvement with the TAC. I'm currently transitioning from my current role to the Land Preservation Director. So I'm interviewing today not just for myself, but also the Conservation District. I believe the Conservation District will be able to provide subject matter experts in the realm of natural resource management. And I believe that perspective is important on the TAC, just from not only the project level standpoint, but a larger broad picture standpoint, watershed evaluation standpoint, and how the policy actually has implications in the field. And I believe that that's consistent with the Conservation District's mission and the purpose of the ordinance.
Thank you. So I'll open it up to questions at this time. Who's going to make this easy?
Yeah, I just have one,
Yes, sir.
knowing your expertise, I appreciate you coming up and stepping up and looking to join us. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Gabe, and appreciate you putting up with us. Thank you.
Well, I can ask,
Oh, go ahead.
do you find on the tech that there's like differing opinions and that there's like a healthy discussion of different views, or do you feel like
Absolutely.
all of you are like, yes, this is best practices, this is what we should do?
No, I think that there is good debate, there's good discussion. I think that it's a pretty diverse group. There's some diverse perspectives, and you need to have that when you're considering policy. So having engineers and non-engineers, practitioners, people that are involved in the ordinance outside of, you know, the rural McHenry County with the actual certified communities. It's good to have as many perspectives as possible.
Good question.
Very good question.
All right. Anybody else? Going once? Thank you.
That's it.
That's it, thanks.
All right.
Thanks again.
You're welcome to stay over.
Okay.
Yeah, probably got
Thank you.
other things to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Vince, you're not here. We'll move up to Dan Ziller.
We're gonna get an earful.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Good morning.
Where do you want to start? I do want to make a comment here quick. I'm
Watch it,
looking
don't
on,
get yourself in trouble before you start.
I just was looking at your list of people that are on the committee and their different titles. Just to make you aware, myself and my alternate are both township representatives, and I see there's none on this committee. Just something to take note of. Sorry to interrupt you.
Duly noted. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
What would you like? I've been involved in this stormwater ordinance from the very beginning, through my involvement with the Farm Bureau, and have consistently through the years been involved in meetings with staff and well, actually before some committee meetings with concerns. And the stormwater ordinance is something that is constantly needs to be looked at. You know, there's good changes to make, and it's just something we need to visit consistently as things change in the county. And instead of coming to committees and meeting with staff about these concerns, I thought I could do a better job if I was sitting on the committee, so. That's why I filled out the application, and I'd appreciate a chance at it.
Okay.
So
Teresa?
you're Grafton Township, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then is your alternate's also Grafton?
Coral.
Coral, okay.
Two areas that need a lot of drainage improvement.
Also, Dan, as I understand, I think I was talking with Jim earlier, you install drain tile for,
I've been doing that since I was a kid.
so how do you find the records for, no, how accurate do you find that the records are when you go and, you know, pick them up where the existing tiles are?
So as we repair and replace tile in today's world,
Yeah.
we're able to GPS all that. So we have a permanent record now. As far as finding those tiles that are 50 and 60 years old, that's a guessing game.
Yeah.
But as we go forward here, we can identify those, and yes, we've spent a lot of time with Mr. Vargo over there getting these new tiles on county maps, so.
Yeah, I've been to a few of his meetings where, you know, put them all in one place for,
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of good we can do
yeah,
going forward here.
thanks.
You've also, Dan, some of your experience, and you've dredged a lot of ditches here too in
Mhm.
recent years, so you're up to date on some of that. Tell us a little bit about what your procedure and process that you've had to go through for some of those projects.
Well, as staff has heard me complain that,
Meaning through the government agencies and everything that you've had.
well, yeah, if it's involved in a county area, you gotta deal with the county, you gotta deal with Army Corps of Engineers, Soil and Water, NRCS, everybody's gotta sign off on it, and everybody's got different rules, which is very hard to get everybody on board with what you're trying to accomplish. The last one I was involved in was in the village of Huntley's territory, and previous to that, I had a lot of arguments with a developer about if they would have cleaned the ditch, that their drainage would have worked better, and now that we did it, they understand that. So those are things that as people see what you've done and the improvements that it makes, it's easier to get more support going forward. So it is quite a process. You don't just go in and do this. I mean, you might as well figure it's gonna take a year or more. The one project was 2 years before you've got everybody signed off on what you're gonna do. So that's another thing. If we can make the county stormwater ordinance mirror the Army Corps of Engineers, try and get everybody on the same page, it'd be much easier to do these things.
You can jump through one set of hoops, so to say.
Yeah.
That covers them all.
Right.
Instead of a set here and a set there.
Right.
Streamlining it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anybody else, any questions? Oh, you guys are all quiet today.
It was too early for us.
Hey, we're out of sorts in this new room.
Right, yes.
Okay, all right, Dan, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. If you don't mind, I'll stick around for a little bit.
All right. Ernest Varga. Ernest.
Sir.
Tell us about anybody who might not know anything about you.
Do we have
I've never seen you before.
Never. Nobody here knows me. Our family came out into the area in the 1950s when we first acquired property out here. We dealt with many drainage situations on our own properties. I worked 20-plus years on the private side, working in all aspects of engineering, including drainage. I was part of the public input when the stormwater ordinance was being developed by McHenry County. I have now done a little over 16 years as a county-involved employee. I guess I'm a hybrid in a way. I still know the departments from the private side, so I can still interact with them. I am kind of the liaison between MCDOT and the various departments. At this end, we kiddingly think of ourselves as the redheaded stepchild just because we're out there. I too, as Gabe had mentioned, we believe at the MCDOT it would be good to have somebody from the MCDOT on the committee always. So my alternate also, Joyce DeLong. Prior to that, Ben Redding was an alternate. Prior to that, Wally Dietrich was an alternate. So we appreciate, we want to be part of it. We have to abide by the very same rules that everyone else does when it comes to our bridge and our road projects. We are not waived or exempt. We think we work well with the Stormwater Division of Planning and Development, and I have served for, let's see, well, I put me on, over 10 years on the TAC Advisory Committee for Stormwater, and I'm open to any questions that anybody would have.
Anybody? How do you feel the GIS program's going with the drainage and the tiles and everything?
I think it's actually going phenomenally. To have something be requested from, in essence, county, and be online in less than a year, it's moving at a pace I can't even envision when it comes to a government end. I think that the maps are expounding as we gain more data and information, and it's not only from planning and development, it's also from our department. They have not yet reached out to the communities that are certified, because they too will have data. And so I think it'll only expound, and if you look at it in 10 years, I think that map will be far further fleshed out than it is right now. But even as it is now, it's kind of a crude tool, but it's the best tool available.
Does anyone in any other counties have a better system?
No. We lead in many of the systems. It's a great honor to work for McHenry County because I will interact with the other counties, Wisconsin side as well as Illinois. And they'll say, you got that? You guys can do that? You have that? You're available? So, no. And historic records, our county possesses more than any of the surrounding neighboring counties I'm aware of. And we're seen kind of as a leader in that way, and we work with state archives because they too find that our records are more. We also did the historic road documents as well as these, and state archives wanted to have access to them, and they're actually, the originals are housed down at NIU, at the Youth State Archives. And they were willing, the deal that was cut, we had them do scanning and give us the scanned copies so that we could then organize them. They got the originals. So I'd say McHenry County in many ways is light years ahead of all of our neighbors.
Okay. Teresa?
It's kind of a hard question to ask somebody who's trying to interview for the position, but in looking at, we're gonna have to pick 5. I'm so glad that we have a lot of people who want to be on our committee. I'm trying to figure out, like, what kind of voices are we missing on the committee?
Okay, well, I think the input you have,
Yeah.
Gabe was part of the input. We have consultants, so you have
Yeah.
engineers and consultants on board. You have people who are more toward the environmental and wetland side. That's a good mix. You have some government entities, which is good. You have, I guess if I had to say you have a void, and I don't know how you'd ever get it, you miss developers. And the worst part is, developers know how to cry crocodile tears the best. Yet, when it's time to input, I've watched multiple ordinances established.
Yes.
Article 4, when Health Department was establishing their well and septic, the stormwater permit, the UDO, and the funny thing is, I would attend the public hearings, not only for properties that myself and my family hold, but also for when I was on the private side, and also when I'm now on the government side. And I always see an absence of them. They're just not there. And yet, on the flip side, as soon as it gets passed, oh, why'd they do that? I can't do this. Nobody told me. Oh, you got to become informed. I guess that's the one void spot. I kind of think of myself a bit as a hybrid. For whatever foolish reason, 29 years ago, I picked up a state license as an Illinois realtor. I maintain it not to act as a realtor, buy or sell in that way, but because of the land holdings we have, and also because of the value it has, I get to interact with the developer community. So I can talk to them on a different level. I try to provide that input as well at the TAC. I don't think you could get a developer. And the reason is, they don't want to input that kind of time. To them, time is money, okay? I'm not going to sit for meetings and do this. And on the other side, all they would do is say, get rid of all of it. It's all garbage. Just give me free reign. What the heck's wrong with you people? I mean, that's what you get. That may be the one point that's missing.
To piggyback on that, I'm an excavating contractor besides everything else. Do you think, I like where you were going with the developer end of it, but I know sometimes when I'm a contractor dealing with a developer, if I've got, I don't want to say the inside track on something, but a little more information that's not just coming from somebody that's in staff, because we know how people's perceptions are, right, wrong, or indifferent, that might be a way to kind of join those, I don't want to say join those forces together, but if you got contractors that know because they're part of the process, I think all of a sudden then it becomes less of a fighting match of, oh, you're making me do this, to the contractor that's hired by them saying, well, I was part of this and I think it's right to do as well.
I would not disagree. Many of the contractors, again though, yourself
Right.
being an exception, they don't want to sit in a meeting. They want to be out on the machine, and if the machine's not
But we're not making any
I'm not
money.
making any money, why am I here? So I think you're correct, but I don't know what incentive.
I think there's value added. That's where they got to think bigger picture.
Oh, I agree, but when you're struggling to pay all of the
Right.
bills, I have worked in private entities.
Right.
I have had my own companies. And when you're struggling to try to pay the bills, it's kind of like, well, do I really have time for this,
Right.
this, and this? You make time if you're conscientious, but it's hard to get that big picture seen. But I agree, any input that could be done would be very good. And so, I mean, myself and my family also did a few developments in McHenry County. And in all the cases, we actually created things in larger and bigger ways only because we knew the ramifications. And so it's just not common. But it would be another way to get an input, I agree.
I think you'd get them on the winter and the rain days, you'd probably get them at probably about half of your meetings. Because most of them want to be, informed. The not so much the developers, because they don't use the shovel, but the excavators, the Carlsons and the excavation. And I think you'd probably, get them, especially in the winter when they're not digging.
Well, if
But
you
that's a good
could get
point.
to a
That's a
large,
good point, that's a good part of the community that.
I agree. If you could get to a large enough firm where a general has,
Mhm.
people in the field doing their things, yes, you could. I agree.
See,
But-
that's where I almost disagree.
Yeah, we do.
Because being a smaller contractor, they're gonna send somebody from the office,
I see.
and it's not gonna be
All
the common sense on the ground.
right, we're kind of getting in the
Right.
weeds a little bit,
Way in the
and we're on a time frame here with everybody. So thank you, Ernest, and appreciate your input.
Yes.
Okay, and I'd like to remain for the balance of the meeting.
Sure, no problem. Tracy Van Bergen has entered the meeting.
Record PHCS meeting.
Oh, yeah, that is where, was it 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go backwards a little bit. Vince is here?
Yes.
Okay, Vince, come on up. Tell us all about yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Vince Mosca with Hay and Associates, Inc., out of Bolo, Illinois. I've been with the firm for 35 years. First job out of college, and here I am. Hay and Associates as a firm, and me personally, we've been involved in many technical advisory committees through the years, including Lake County. Our firm and my tenure at Hay predates all of the stormwater ordinances. So I was baptized with all the ordinances through the years. I've always been private sector, but also we sort of have one of those love-hate relationships. We like the ordinances because they make work for us, and they also do good work, and then also we need them to be practical. And so one of the things I've appreciated being involved in the advisory committees is to keep the ordinances real. From the practical side, we've always pushed back against some parts of the ordinances we thought were either burdensome or didn't have as much value as other parts of it. So, but we are big fans of the ordinances. We think that they work. We think that the value of stormwater management, especially for the water quality detention and volume control, but also water quality, has proven to be a good thing for northeastern Illinois. I say there's been a lot of development in this part of the country over the years, and water quality has actually improved in our rivers. So I think that that's a testimony to the effectiveness of the, we have some legacy issues with stormwater and flooding and some water quality, but at the same time, we've actually made improvements while houses and developments have been put in the ground. So I think that's a good thing, and that's not, most of the state doesn't have stormwater management. So when you come around the collar counties around Chicago and all the development we've had, the value of the stormwater ordinance is pretty real.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions. Anybody?
Well, is there anything that I asked before that you're like, oh, I'd like to comment on that? Right. So like, I asked Ernest what we were missing. I asked about collaboration on the committee. I don't know if you heard all that.
I did.
Okay. So is there anything else you wanted to add to
I
this?
agree, the developer community, I think that there is a nice balance on the TAC. the farming community and transportation and the engineering, and I'm on the ecological side. I think that's a nice balance through the years. The developer community, I mean, I think that they've matured through the years. They don't like the ordinances per se, that just by their nature, but at the same time that they understand that compliance is important, and they just plan for it. Early in my career, there was a lot of bad planning, where a quick example would be like, I'd get a fax in the old days of land plan concept 3, and they had no due diligence, no wetland, no floodplain assessment, and they'd have, you know, their third iteration, and then they'd hire me, and then I'd lose 30 lots for them, in their words. So that's gone. The development community now plans for things like floodplain and wetlands and endangered species much better than they used to, and I think that the ordinances have brought reality to them, and they comply pretty well. I mean, they would prefer probably that it was a little less onerous, but at the same time, it's just a part of business, and they move on. So, but not having them on the TAC isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I think that there's enough push and pull between the TAC on all the various things to try to, and the ordinances have been mostly the same for a long time, so it's just nuances on changes to it and updating to comply with other kinds of regulations and that. So I think that overall, the TAC's in pretty good shape.
So nothing you would change then, that you see bad about our town?
No, not from that standpoint. I have, you know, we banter at the TAC about some of the proposed changes on things like water quality and best management practices and those kinds of things, because I have some concerns that we might be going in a direction that might be hard to handle from that standpoint. But as a TAC and as a group, I think it's functioning well.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, Gabe, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Let me see, so this is up. I think now we're up to Spring Duffy.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Oops, ID smack. I'm Spring Duffy. I'm with the McHenry Lake County Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm their executive director. I have been working for the district for 26 years now. That was my first job out of college, and I fell in love with the county and the people, and I haven't left. And I enjoy my job because we touch all sectors of the county. We're working with developers through the stormwater ordinance, doing erosion control inspections, but we also do inspections on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency and also the Army Corps of Engineers. And we also work with the Illinois Urban Manual. So we're on the committee that helps to create new practices, which are referenced in the stormwater ordinance as the guide that developers follow. So we are heavily involved in that. We also are heavily involved in the actual creation of the ordinance. We pushed for that. We were on the committee. We helped with the creation. So it is in our policies and in our guidebooks that we would like to be involved in this in the future, and to make sure that this is an ordinance that works for all the people. And also, you know, as an agency, we see a lot of the push and pulls coming from different rules that one agency has versus the other. And we like to be able to kind of provide that insight to the committee, where something that may be proposed, it could conflict with something else, just because we see it in the field as well. And working with agricultural producers, we see the issues that they have, with some of the ordinance issues that come about that were unintentional but do have effects on the farming community. So we try to help guide them through those different ordinances. And same with general homeowners. When someone is looking at a piece of property, we help guide them through. We're familiar with the ordinance. We're able to steer them away from certain properties that we know probably won't work. We're going to be very expensive for them or hard. And then also I work on behalf of the county reviewing all the wetland permits. So I'm heavily involved in that part of the ordinance in the field. So that's roughly me in a nutshell.
Okay. Any questions for anyone?
Well, I mean.
Go ahead with your, go ahead.
I mean, you can also add to my, the two questions.
I like your line of thought here.
Yeah.
I do agree with what everybody's been saying, the developer end. Yes, I do think that is a weakness that we have. But I do feel that, in our position, we are working daily with developers on construction sites, working through those different stormwater issues and making sure the water quality is not impacted by that development. So we're there. If we see something where we see that there's sediment leaving the site, we're the ones, reporting with them and working with them to find solutions to prevent that from happening. So, I mean, we are there, we are seeing that. Same with the agricultural community. We're working with them, trying to, if they want to dig out a ditch, okay, we're gonna assist you. This is, some of the things that you may have to look at ahead of time. And we try best with all the people that come into our office to guide them through the ordinances to kind of come to that sweet spot where they're getting as much as they want, but following the ordinance as much as possible. So we do try to work through that. And so development is, it is an issue in getting that voice. But I think the committee we have now, we have quite a few consultants that are working with those developers, so they are bringing that input as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right.
Nothing
Thank you,
else?
Spring.
Okay. Thank you all. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
You mentioned what you're trying to do is streamline the permit process. How's that going, and are developers getting more online with it?
Oh, yes. I mean, we get to see a lot of these projects in the beginning. We're able to input, especially when it comes to projects that involve the Army Corps of Engineers. We're able to give input to those developers in the planning process beforehand. And then when we're doing our inspections, working with them directly, so helping them, okay, you would need a permit for this, and we can work through that to make sure that it's going to work, and then it goes onto the county staff to be able to review that as well.
Put it more online?
But, yeah, so we're working with them kind of ahead of time before it gets all the way to the county for that process, especially for some of those bigger developments and bridge projects and that type of thing. But I think the developers are very on board with our assistance, and actually the Illinois EPA is looking at us more now to be that education voice for them out in the field. So they don't want us to be so much you're doing bad. you're not following our rules or the county rules. They want us to be more the educational type thing, where we're out there trying to come up with different solutions to meet the ordinance requirements. And that's where we work with what we call the Illinois Urban Manual, which outlines those different practices. So we're developing new practices, we're revising some of the old ones that we found that don't work. And that's part of when you're out there with the contractor. Hey, what you recommended and what we need to follow in the ordinance, it's not working. Is there another solution? And that's what we're trying to do, is come up with different solutions. So I think it's very beneficial, when we're out there one-on-one with those contractors, to be able to hear what's going on and what does work and what doesn't work, and to be able to come up with new solutions, and then bring those back to the TAC when possible.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Spring. Okay, next one up is Alex Strack.
Hello, I'm Alex Strock. I might be a newer face to most of you. I currently work with Baxter and Woodman Consulting Engineers in Crystal Lake, and I've been there for a little over 2 years. Before that, I worked in Wisconsin for a smaller private development firm called Pinnacle Engineering for 2 years also, so I've only been in the industry for about 4 years. Some of the members of the Technical Advisory Committee have been doing this for longer than I've been alive, so I may not have quite the same amount of experience, but I...
That Ernest, you're old.
Why
did you tell me that today?
Sorry for interrupting.
He's not old, he's wise. That's the word I like to use.
There we go. See, help part of the interview for him.
Yeah.
I don't know, he's in his own.
With time comes experience, and although I may have a lack of time, I am eager to learn. I will say that what I bring to the table may not be as much just due to that lack of experience, and quite selfishly, I'm here to learn just as much as I am to benefit the Technical Advisory Committee and help out with the ordinance. But that being said, I am a working professional. I am reading the ordinance often to help with developers and whatever projects we're working on. You know, it's a part of my job, and I hope to use it and learn from it, and that's what I'm here for.
I got one for you. It's
Go
kind
ahead.
of personal level. You said you were in Wisconsin prior to?
Yes.
Where'd you go to school?
Marquette University.
All right.
Where'd you go to school?
Platteville?
Platteville, okay. I have a lot of friends who went to Platteville.
Rah, you Platteville guys. Hey, so I'm gonna ask a question on this, so you're newer to the area. And what have you learned that you disagree with I'm gonna ask a couple of questions here, but what have you learned that you don't like about our stormwater ordinance? And things that you would change personally?
I'm going to look at it from the perspective of someone who's not as versed in reading ordinances. Sometimes things aren't as clear. Like there can be things that appear contradictory at first, and if you don't have 20 years of experience reading it, and you know some of the knowledge that other members have, they may take for granted, and I'm able to look at it and say this isn't as clear to me. Trying to think of a specific example, but none are coming to mind right now.
That might not be a bad thing, though, because the common guy out on the street reading that ordinance might not understand it either.
Mhm.
So maybe there is a difference.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's a good perspective for me to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to defer to Teresa next for your question.
That's my same question, yeah.
And then I'm going to come back. maybe.
Okay, yeah, because the question you're asking, the question you just asked is also a question I had, but you've answered that now. So yes, the question I've been asking kind of everybody, what do you think we're missing? What kind of collaboration are you feeling in the committee?
I think the collaboration is pretty good. Sometimes there are issues that are pretty cut and dry, and there's almost unanimous agreement on what needs to be done, but sometimes it's not the case, and there's a wealth of discussion to come to an agreement and decide what decision needs to be made. In terms of what bodies could maybe be present, we do have a really good spread across the industry. There's consultants, there's regulatory people, there's people in the county, there's people on the private side. But I'm going to piggyback off of what everyone said. Developers are the one thing that I can say are not there. But consultants work with developers. We know what they want, we know what they don't want, but at the end of the day, we know what's more important for the county, and there's always a compromise to be reached. Like if they don't like the ordinance because it makes their job harder, well, that's not what the ordinance is for. It's there to protect the county, the stormwater, the water quality, and we, as engineers and the various bodies that are all present, know, or at least attempt to know what's best. So.
Do you also find, so I'm looking at this, and I guess this is going to show you how stupid I am. So we have HR Green, Schmidt Engineering, Gerald Associate, I'm like reading down them. How are these different? How are the people, the consultants, different in like their expertise? Like, are you all of you that are part of these consulting firms? Are you all engineers, or is there different expertise coming?
There's different. I don't know what to call it. Different sides of engineering. Like
Okay.
Vince is more ecological. Vince Mosca. He was
Right.
earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a water resources engineer, and I know Ernest, although he doesn't work for a consultant, he's more of a transportation guy. Like we represent the broad field of civil engineering, and it all comes back to the ordinance, and the rules in it dictate how various aspects of engineering need to be executed.
So you don't find there's any like overlap where you're like, oh, this guy's doing the same job I'm doing?
There may be some overlap.
Yeah.
There are very few voids. I think at least what's going to pertain to the ordinance is represented well. We have a good variation in engineers. I know that as far as like clients that each of these have, it's a pretty similar gamut. Like we all represent various communities, counties, whatever body. So probably the entire county is covered by the handful of consultants that are on that list.
Okay. He's answered all pretty good questions here
Yeah.
on that. Anybody else have any questions for him? All right, so for the sake of us getting through this, we're going to break for deliberations, but,
You wanted,
Scott a chance.
but, yeah, give me a second here. And thank all of you for coming that were scheduled. Scott's here, we're going to let Scott, well, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Ray.
And we're going to let Scott speak a little bit on his own behalf, why he would possibly like to do this. And then we're going to break, and so you're welcome to stay for the deliberations, any of you, or not, but we're going to move on. We do have to be out of here by, we have another committee of the whole at 10 o'clock, so we've got to move forward here. So let's move on to Scott here. Scott, welcome, and late minute, you guys don't have anything on Scott, but Scott, introduce yourself, tell us about what you do.
My name's Scott Hajek. I'm currently the village engineer for the village of Huntley on the development side. Prior to that, I worked for the city of Elgin in their engineering department, and before that, spent 15 years at Kane County in the water resources department enforcing the Kane County stormwater ordinance. So very well versed in stormwater ordinances. I look at the balance between an ordinance being enforceable, practical, and understandable. I mean, the key in my mind is people need to be able to know what they're supposed to be doing. And if the ordinance isn't clear, it can create a lot of problems. So I always try to distill it down to the very basics, and having enforced the Kane County ordinance for over 20 years now, it's trying to do that, is make it so it's simple, practical for the developers, practical for the individual homeowners, because homeowners, they're gonna need to understand it, especially for properties, working with small contractors, large contractors, small developers, large developers. It all has to be understandable for them. It also has to be, like I said, practical, because if it's not going to work and it's not going to allow for a responsible development, that's a problem. The reason I'm interested in the McHenry County ordinance is Huntley is a split village, half Kane, half McHenry, and I see value in the McHenry County ordinance as well. There's parts of it I think that they should be blended into the Kane ordinance if we were going to continue to enforce that, or at some point I could see the village of Huntley making a switch. I would like to be involved with the TAC because I think bringing the village's side of things as well as the experience I have with Kane County would be valuable.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions again. I'm going to ask a question that's different with your experience that you just brought up, which I wasn't aware of this, but how do you view the Kane County ordinance compared to the McHenry County ordinance, since you see both of them?
The Kane ordinance, they're very similar. There's a little bit more oversight on the McHenry ordinance, which I think is important. The Kane ordinance, it's missing a few things. They went through a revision from, the original ordinance was 2002, and then in 2019, they updated it. There are some things that need to be corrected in that, that I think that the McHenry County ordinance has addressed.
Such as?
Subdivision regulations. It's a little bit more clear in the McHenry County ordinance.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out that balance and how I can introduce some of my practical.
Anything on the McHenry County ordinance that seems to be over restrictive or under restrictive?
To be completely honest, I don't know it as well as the cane. I've flipped through it. I haven't read it in detail, because since I don't have to actively enforce it, but I've been trying to familiarize myself with it over time. I'd have to look at where it would be a little bit more restrictive and cumbersome. I don't think it is. I think it's just that oversight based on permitting, the responsibility of the certified engineers.
Because Huntley, all of Huntley runs through the King County.
Right, and
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I think when we decided to go that route, I think Kane County's ordinance was the most stringent between the two.
At the time, Kane was the only one that was.
So that was all that they had in place, so we went with that. But I agree with you, if there's a way we can either, I don't want to say combine them, but make it work. You've seen, the only good part about being in two counties, you see not very good things about being in two counties sometimes, but you get double the exposure to different thoughts, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
That was a smart answer on McHenry County, by the way. Probably the smartest answer all morning.
The village of Huntley, even though, you know, politically we're divided by the two counties, our entire watershed drains through McHenry. I mean, it starts in Kane, but it's all goes through McHenry. And I think that's why it's important that we need to address the McHenry County side of things as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our interviews. And like I said before, you're welcome to stay through the deliberations, but I'm going to open it up to deliberations on this. And I want to go down and start this off. We don't have our.
We need Scott with his whiteboard.
We need Scott with his whiteboard.
I know, yeah.
I can pull
No
up a Word
whiteboards in
doc.
here even.
If you guys want, I can use a little Word doc.
And I got to be honest with you,
Italian
this is
names.
going to be we have 5 positions that we're going to select. And every single candidate here is great. So I thank all of you for wanting to step up and do this job. So, because there's a lot to be done on this tech commission in the next year or two. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm going to open it up for discussion that each of you want to say prefer, not prefer. I wish we could take them all, but we don't have that opportunity. And I did ask if we had anyone from the expiring term on 2026, and we don't have anyone who does not want to remain on it. So we only have 5 positions to fill right now. So at that, I leave it open to each of you for discussion. Carl, you want to say something? Go ahead. We'll start with
Would
you.
the candidate, you know, since we have 5 and we have 6 or 7, would one of them be able to be an alternate?
Is that impossible in our bylaws? I don't even think that's possible.
No, it usually, if you choose a primary, we allow the primary to choose their alternate, so I mean that if they wanted to.
Okay.
If that arrangement, that's not an arrangement that's impossible.
They're looking ways not to lose good help.
No, I understand. Okay. Tracy?
My apologies for missing the majority of the interviews, so while I don't have any specifics, I guess I just wanted to comment on, you know, it seems that, you know, all of the candidates are wonderfully educated in, you know, their respective fields. And we have, I feel like we have a great representation from the consultant side of things. I guess what I would like to see also represented a little bit more are some stakeholders in, you know, the actual ordinance, you know, some of the people who have a little bit more knowledge in having to comply with the ordinance, you know, getting a set of eyes that necessarily isn't ordinance focused, but can look at it from, and I guess the civil engineers do also have that, but I would just like to see some representation from more stakeholders.
Okay. I'm just gonna move down the road. Teresa?
Well, so I mean, this thing is right, we're looking into this, I originally thought, oh, we only have to cut one, but, you know, or change one, or keep the 5 and say sorry to the new guy, right? But now, now we have 2 new guys, and the question is everybody has everybody has made a case for why they would be a benefit to our TAC. So, like, I'm very conflicted, like, I'm not ready to say, oh, these are the 5 I'm solid on. And there isn't anybody that I would necessarily throw out either, and that's conflicting, right? Because we do all, some of us have a meeting to go to, right? So a decision needs to be made. So I don't have anything of use to say. So I'm passing it down to you now.
Wow, okay. Abigail?
I guess my only comment would be that we do have a lot of consultants. So as much as, I guess I wouldn't necessarily select another consultant because we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them on the board. So I guess that would be my vote to not add another one, kind of keep those stakeholders that we kind of keep expanding upon the stakeholders that are involved in the group. Because it does provide that definite different perspectives from everybody.
Thank you. I like that.
Have you read my mind? I was gonna say the same thing, that there's a lot of consultants. I know several of those consultants, and they do, like Ernest, have backgrounds in the private sector, and they're in the private sector, but a lot of them have experience in the public sector too. So it's great to see all the consultants out there, but getting people who are having the developers come in and enforceable people on board is a benefit, I think.
Okay. Now, Scott, besides bragging on yourself here, saying select me, what do you see?
Well, I think that the stakeholders are important. I mean, if I see one person on this list that I would see a great deal of value, I would see that Dan Ziller would be important, because there's somebody with boots on the ground, understands drainage probably better than any of the consultants on the list, because he deals with it every day. Especially somebody that understands the practicality of agricultural drainage, and probably has more knowledge locked away in his brain about that than most people do. I think there's that, to me, of the list, that's the most important person I think you have to pick off this list.
Okay, thank you. Ross?
I would agree with that point being said. It's experience, boots on the ground, as you said. I also agree with Abby. There's a lot of engineers, Baxter Woodman, Hayden Associates. But I also like the idea of bringing in some fresh blood, to the committee, where we've had some of these individuals on here for 30+ years. Well, they've been involved with it for 30 years, but since the beginning of the TAC, and it's not always a bad idea to bring in somebody that has a more up-to-date education, should I say? Recent college graduates, things like that. So that's my take.
Thank you. Mr. Reiner?
Yeah, I was going to say earlier on too, Tracy has a good point, with the stakeholders. And the only person I see working with doing actual permit submittals is Schmidt Engineering, Muco, John Raber, they actually write or draw the engineering plans to be submitted for these permits here in the county. And they're more stakeholders than, those are the guys that, you say you want a developer to see it. They are the developer's representation because they're drawing it for the developer, right? How many drawings do you see for Luco and Raber and Schmidt? I mean, those are the ones that draw it up for the builders and developers here in the county. But that being said, the engineering, you know, they're great for consulting, but you do have a lot of those. So I would get more towards the boots on the ground with, you know, the Dan Ziller, you know, Ernest, you know, being right here in the county. I don't know, Ernest, what do you think? I mean, you're gonna be here and see it anyway if you're a member of the TAC force or not.
Oh,
Am I wrong?
I guess I would see it whether I'm on it or not. I work with Stoyan and Scott on many projects. It also happens that now I have a brother who is engaged by the Planning and Development Department under the Stormwater Division.
Yeah.
So I get to also discuss it when we have family gatherings now. So I will find out.
That might be worse than
I will find out,
I mean, and I'm trying to be as polite as possible. I mean, if we were not to pick you, you're gonna be here anyway. You're on staff.
Oh,
Am I right, Adam, or no? Am I taking that wrong, or?
Well, am I on staff? Yes, answer to your question. Will I be here? Yes, but not to the extent, and let me explain. When a TAC committee meets, okay, specific points are highlighted, and it's usually by comments that Stoyan and Scott have heard from people at the counter or, you know, issues they've arisen at, and then those are explored. Sometimes they have to be amplified, sometimes it's, okay, let's pass this on to Stormwater Committee, that's fine. I would hear about it, yes, but not directly. I mean, I wouldn't be at the meeting anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would eventually hear about it, or I'd find out about it, but
So with you being the one that does all the mapping, am I right? You're pretty much the one that does all the mapping and whatnot? Or you know, records most of the old drain tiles that are?
I work with GIS extensively, yes. But yeah, I do a lot of the digging and
So
research.
why does it keep you on then if you're not gonna be here if we don't? I'm trying to single out the importance of how do we get to the 5? You get what I'm saying there?
I understand what you're saying. Every comment that's been made so far has validity, and none of them involve
Of
myself.
course, mine are the most valid, but.
Okay.
I'm joking, and I'm
No.
trying to keep it warm, because how do you make 7 and 5, you know?
A difficult decision, and the worst part, best, whatever, you have 7 good candidates. So it's not as though you have any that you can just discard. So I guess that's, to answer it, I would find out, yes. I would not be involved in the processing of, and I would still, let me back
Personally, I'd
up.
like to keep you on board then, you know, in that case.
Right, I mean, I would,
Because he's too much a part of us, you know, a part of the process, you know.
Okay, let me offer one other thing. Yes, I'd like to be a part, but as an example, by a fluke of scheduling, the last TAC meeting, I was not present. I had not received the appointment and it had not popped. So as a possible need, because it was noted, Stoyan and I met for an hour and a half, and we went over the very same points that were discussed at the TAC. So I guess I could say, if not, I'd still be willing to work with Stoyan in that basis, just as consulting. I don't even know how to describe it, but,
Okay,
so it could be done in an alternate manner.
yeah, so you're expendable.
Jim himself said,
Right, we gotta be out of here by 10.
Jim himself said I'm old, so sure, I'm expendable. We'll take that as
I also said we have to figure out how to freeze dry him and keep him alive.
here's the thing, originally I thought to myself that, you know, Ernest was for sure gonna be put forward, that he would definitely be one of the 5. And I see that your point was, if we don't put him, can he be there secretly, right?
That side, you're behind the scenes, right, with, so.
Yeah.
It's still voice your opinion.
So, and to be honest, it's had other duties as assigned.
Right.
So if DOT, Scott Hennings just walked in and said, you'll work with Stoyan whatever he needs, but that's another duty as assigned, and I have no difficulty doing that as well.
Right.
I think the only difficulty if I meet with him one-on-one is you don't get the
Yeah,
input from the
right,
group.
right.
And we were looking to him for some critical input to help drive the discussions further that we weren't able to get. So, yeah, I guess from the way Ernest is saying that we could do that, but it's not gonna be as clean and I don't think it's gonna be as powerful. For some of those issues, he's kind of our only true transportation expert in there.
So Ernest is a keeper.
He's a keeper, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If-
He is a
Well,
wealth of
we-
knowledge.
That was not me vouching for him or anyone else, it was just that's what had happened with the scheduling issues, that there was some need for transportation input. We did not have that, and our discussions did stall.
I've let this get into the weeds a little bit too much here, so I apologize.
Well, it was mine, so after this discussion, my two of the five would be Dan and Ernest. So.
Okay. Okay, all right, Mr. Hoft.
Real quick, I appreciate everybody's wanting to participate. I do agree that we're probably a little heavy on the consulting engineer side, with no disrespect to anybody that's in that field. But I know for a fact you guys all talk anyway. So if you got some issues that need to be brought up, if you're not any longer on the committee, you know who you gotta get a hold of to get your voice heard. And I think, so I don't wanna say if we gotta cut somebody, I think that's where you do it. I think Dan Ziller's would be a great asset. Just, my dad grew up fixing tile, and it was guys like him and Dan that, when Huntley did our development, Dad would be driving the fields with earth movers saying, you guys got a tile here that goes to here. And there's so much of that was just in somebody's head, that when they're gone, for whether they move or are gone, we've got so much on GIS and GPS now that works and it's great, but we gotta keep those guys that have it up here that aren't gonna be here forever. It's just, I think that's a key person, plus your boots are on the ground, you've been doing it forever. I'm gonna go back to my list here. I'm biased here with Scott, but I think having the inside, not the inside track, but the inner workings of the King County Stormwater Ordinance to make ours better, it would be a good thing. There again, being on the municipal side, you're the one that has to deal with the developer. We've talked about developers. You're the one that has to, from the village engineer side, make sure they know what's going on too. So, good with that. Alex, I like your youth, and the only way you get experience is by doing something. So I think there's some value to that. Marquette's a good school too, I'll give you that. So, just learn what we talked about. I think that's a no-brainer.
I agree with Alex too.
And so here's my four. I'm still kind of stuck in the air on my last one, so.
Okay, so, after hearing everyone, each of you, go ahead, Carl. That was my question. I was gonna ask if anyone had any changes in their opinions.
Three that I kind of go and torn for the rest is Dan being there forever. I don't want my transportation guy to go away. And I appreciated Alex, like us new board members coming onto the board, we're blasted with all the regulations. We're trying to figure it out. We're reading it like street people and it makes no sense. I like that kind of approach, coming in, looking at it as what we're telling them to do, to put it more into English that the everyday guy can understand.
Okay.
Those are my three.
Thank you. Tracy, you want to add anything else?
Well, I mean, if you would like names, I did have a list based on the information.
Okay.
And I appreciate being able to hear Scott, but, so I guess I would like to see Dan Ziller, of course, for boots on the ground, Ernie Varga for his transportation knowledge, and I nobody really touched base on his passion for all of it, and I know that just with his drainage district map information, that essentially he kind of started all that. So I'd like to see Ernest still on here. I think it's important for Spring with the state and federal regulations, that maybe she can look at that and explain a few things. Alex for his new perspective, and then Scott with the Kane and McHenry differences. I know a lot of counties tend to borrow things from other counties, some good, some not so good, but I think when you are able to look at the application in detail and do a contrast and comparison, you can come out with a better ordinance that fits us. So that would be my pick.
All right, thank you. Teresa, how about you?
So I still haven't picked, I can't get rid of
And that's
you.
okay.
So I'll
because-
say my four. I'll say the four, and then I sit here and I stare at the other three, and I think to myself, where's, who can fill what gap are they filling that we would still need? So I've already said Ernest. I agree that Dan has a very important perspective that should be on the committee. Spring, I also agree. And Gabe, so I know Gabe was first, and so he didn't get any good, he didn't get great questions because we were maybe still sleepy. But I think it's important to have the Conservation District represented on the committee. And so I also would want to keep Gabe Powers and the alternate, his alternate. So that's the four, and then I look at our other three, right? And I agree that it's important to bring in a young perspective. So I was like, oh, I really want to say Alex, but then I also don't want to I don't want to not include Scott, and then I'm thinking, Vince seems like that's the problem. The problem is I have four, and then the fifth one is the one that I'm stuck on.
Okay.
So.
I understand totally on what you're saying.
It's not an
Okay.
easy choice.
Mr. Kearns, I'll throw a fourth one, Ms. Spring Duffy, just in her streamlining, going like Adam streamlining the department.
Okay.
Do you want me to pick?
You're next.
I'm doing it strictly based on getting that depth on the committee. So I would pick Gabe, Dan, Ernest, Spring, and Scott.
Gabe, Dan, Ernest, Scott.
Spring.
Spring and stuff.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Thank you for being so definite. What you do.
She read my mind again, I swear I wrote it down, but I have the exact same one.
Okay.
You got same?
Gabe, Dan, Ernest.
We're not gonna let
Spring,
you two
and
sit
Scott.
next to each other.
Wow, it could split you guys up.
Make it black and white. I've tried to make it black and white, but it's hard.
Where's Scott when we need him?
Well.
Okay.
So Stone's doing a good job with this.
I'm trying. If
Yes.
just let me know if I got
Ernest.
Ernest. Thank you.
You got them all?
Uh,
I think.
Okay.
I'm writing them down too.
try.
I'm gonna skip you, Scott, on this one because it puts you in a bad position.
Right, that's
Anyway,
it.
'cause I'm-
Yeah, I was gonna say, because
That's
you're
true.
here. Ross?
So I agree with everything that's been said about everybody. I mean, everybody here probably deserves to be on this tech. We just don't have the number of spots available. So it is a tough decision, but, so mine are Ernest, Spring, Dan, Alex, and Scott.
last name, Ross?
Ernest, Spring, Dan, Alex, Scott.
Alex.
Thank you. John, I have you down for 2.
Yeah.
Just hearing you speak, but if
So
you're
I was gonna
looking
say,
around-
and I agree with Gabe also, because, I mean, they're the largest landholder in the county. You know, and they are the environmentalists in the room too, I mean, to the nth degree. So for sure Gabe, and then I had Dan, Ernest, and Alex. I'm torn between Scott and Spring, but I think I'd, only because you're reading it in one of the bigger development areas right now in the county with everything that's going on, I'd probably go with Scott. And you know, leaving out a few that just hurts, because Vince and Spring are just perfect candidates too.
Yeah, this is very difficult.
So, but that's mine, I'll stick with that.
And Tim, you already gave.
I got 2 that I had,
Put you down for Dan.
yeah, Ernest was supposed to be on my list. And then, I was between Spring and Gabe, and I think I'm gonna go with Spring for my 5th.
So Ernest, Dan, Spring, Scott. Who's your 5th?
Alex.
Alex. Okay. Since you got this all in.
And the same thing, I think we got
I can send
all
this.
qualified, great candidates, that's what makes it tough. Which is a good problem to have.
Okay. And now, I have the same thing, and that's why I went through a second time and asked all of you again, since the final appointments I have to kind of make here with your tallies. And I'm gonna make the appointments not today for us. I want to ask a couple of questions on this, some of these things. I want to know if, I'm real concerned that we keep a fairness in this, a balance to our tech, taking all that into consideration. And I don't want to cut someone out who we may lose that balance a little bit, jeopardize that. So I'm concerned, and I don't want to make a rash decision. I wanted to make sure we did this before November. The reason I wanted to make sure we did this before November, and I'll make the decision a lot quicker than that. I'll make the decision in the next week or 2. Maybe even today yet, but I just wanted to make sure that I got everyone's opinion on this, because it's real important. I know you guys have put so much input, and it didn't make it any easier. You did make a couple things easier, a couple people who I thought maybe, but you gave a lot of reasons why they should be on, so, on some of them. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and I know that sounds like a cheap way out of it, not taking a hard stance right now, but I think we need, this is important. And this has been something that has been extremely important to me personally since I've been on the board, of getting this right and getting this balance right so that we can move this. Because to me, moving this stormwater ordinance forward, the rewrite of it, to me is probably the most important thing to me on this board, that since I've been on the board for McHenry County. And that's why I'm not gonna, just hear in the interviews, I'm not gonna make that rash decision today that I might regret. Does that make sense to everybody? So I wanna think about it and consult with Scott and a couple other people about if I'm doing damage by not picking someone. So I wanna make sure I don't go backwards in our thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
If you think I'm nuts, I mean, don't force me to pick them right now, but I will, but if you think I should. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to close the deliberation for that. The next item up, because we're running short of time here. Next meeting possible that everyone can meet. We have 3 dates here of Thursday, November 21st. It's not Thanksgiving, is it?
No,
November
it's the
13th,
following week.
November 13th or November 15th. What works best for everybody?
Does that go over any of your meetings? Right, it's usually on one of your meetings.
It's PHCS that, and it does not conflict with PHCS in November.
Do we mix with any of the other meetings?
Because we're the 27th.
My request to Christie was to try to find dates that did not have any other meetings potentially for y'all. So those were the dates she gave me. I did try to throw out some Thursdays just to keep the consistency of the Thursday, if that's what you guys like. So that's how we kind of came up with the list, was availability, avoiding conflicts, and trying to throw in a couple of Thursdays at the same time.
I'm fine with all 3 of those dates.
What are they again, the 13th, 15th, 21st? Did I hear that right?
Yep.
Or anyone works?
I cannot make the 15th.
And I'm not on the 13th.
Did I hear?
No 13th.
No 13th for you?
Thanksgiving is the 28th, right? I'm just looking.
Yes. Yeah, public health day.
We don't have any
I
meetings
guess
on
I'm not going anywhere.
We don't have a meeting,
Thanksgiving.
we don't have a cow on the 21st, I don't believe.
It's the 19th.
19th.
21's the only day I've heard where nobody's got any conflicts.
Yeah, if no conflicts, let's make it the 21st.
Okay.
Got it.
8 o'clock, 8:30, 7, 6.
Same time, what we always do, 8:30?
8:30, okay.
As early as you need me to be here.
Okay, it's booked. Gonna
I
do the
got it.
21st. Okay, discussion items.
Yes.
We gotta make these quick here. That's all we actually got.
I will make it quick. What I attached for you guys, just as a quick reminder, let me get to it here. We had presented last time on an update for the fee payments, the in lieu fees for the Wetland Restoration Fund. What I had presented was some values from some current for banks in the county, and also in Lake County. And the way that Lake County had done it, they used an inflation calculator through the U.S. labor statistics. I had taken these numbers, done the same thing, but our values were still falling short. So we met with MCCD, we met with the assessor, and we got a lot of good information on trying to update the information that you see here. But what we also discovered was that really the entire document needs to be updated. Since then, we've had 2 projects that have come forward. So this document is supposed to discuss the dispersible funds, all of that, the selection process. We've had matrices that have been designed. Meeting with the assessor, we got into a lot of good information about how do we factor land acquisition into this. We've had some discussions about potentially the Army Corps pulling back its jurisdiction. We gain a lot of new isolated wetland areas, and being mindful that maybe we want to categorize these, understanding that if we let someone wipe out a Category 5, that we try to use those funds to then try to establish or expand on a Category 5 to maintain those benefits. And really, the fund table, we're looking to just have one cost. This land cost and restoration cost, as we came to discover, it's not like a land purchasing cost or anything like that. Sometimes these values are not even related to the potential projects that are coming in. So what we'd like to do is re-update the whole document, send it through the TAC, and then bring it to you guys for further approval and review. So that was really all that was an update that we found additional information that needed to be updated. So unless anyone has any questions, that's how we'll essentially proceed. If that's okay with everyone. And I should point out that in the meantime, if we do get any applicants, we would still follow these guidelines and these numbers. Now, there isn't a huge amount coming in to where, we might be missing out on funding, but that is a point of clarification, obviously. But we're not looking to drag our feet. It's just, we had too much information in the amount of time that we wanted to get something together, and we'd like to send it through the TAC as well.
Okay. All right. Carl? Motion to adjourn, Carl? Second? Second. Tim? Seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn?
Got you out of here.
Yeah.
What's that?
Got you out of here.
Thank you, everyone.